Thank you so much for joining me today, Joyi Micheal. It's really beautiful discussing politics, and I'm glad you're able to join me today.
You're welcome.
All right, let's talk. Generally, election in Nigeria has been such that it unfolds with drama. From the primaries, I know the primaries are past, the PDP, the APC, the Labour Party, and all of that. From the primaries, a lot of Nigerians feel that that's where the decision was made for us. Do you think that the existing political parties right now did well with the choices that they have given Nigerians to choose towards the 2023 elections?
First of all, we need to understand the peculiarity with electioneering.
Okay.
It's the role of political parties in democratic elections, which is what we're practicing at the moment. So the first stage to power, as the case may be, is that you must pass through party politics. And party politics sometimes is not democratic, or most times it's never democratic.
Okay.
So I always want to reason in line with the fact that political party husbands democracy, but it is oligarchic in nature.
It's polygamic in nature.
Oligarchy.
Oligarchy. All right, that's fine. All right.
Yeah. So if we say political parties are oligarchy, that means that any one of you who has the stronghold on the oligarchs of the party can easily get the desired results regarding the primaries. Because it's on the platform, it's on the basis of the first step, which is the primaries, that determines who ends up being the aspirant of the political party. And the process of choosing an aspirant in the political party goes in line with what the party hierarchies want. So it is like the end justifies the means.
Okay. Let's get it.
No. The party politics become the aspirants.
Okay, let's get into using some of the examples we've had recently. I think it was the Vanguard newspaper that wrote an article some time ago that we should not go to hell to shop for political candidates. But right now, I want you to, in your own view, do an assessment of 3 presidential flag bearers from the PDP, the APC, and even Labour Party. Peter Obi was not in Labour Party at the beginning of the year, but somehow he had to move. So maybe we should even start from that move. Is it that he had difficulties accepting the oligarchy, like you called it, in PDP and then moved to Labour Party? I can see a smile on your face.
Okay. Regarding Peter Obi's move from PDP, you need to also understand that politicians have personal interest. These are the interest of, by extension, their caucus, so to say.
Okay.
And what do I mean by the caucus? When you're coming on board political appointment, or when you're coming on board as a public servant, you have 1 or 2 trustees, you have 1 or 2 friends, you have 1 or 2 extended allies that you would want to bring on board. Okay. So for Peter Obi, if you would remember vividly well, he was coming from ABGA to PDP. So his primary, the platform on which he rode was first ABGA.
Yes.
He has an interest in pursuit. ABGA was not going to give him the leverage. He has to move to PDP. He's just saying that, how do I get hold of this political structure? It's a means to an end, like I said earlier. From the political structure, when you get hold of the political structure, you're able to pursue your interest. Maybe you have interest of becoming the governor, you have interest of becoming the president, so to say. So the PDP, looking from all indications, was not going to give him that goal that he's pursuing. There was no way he was going to defeat the likes of the politicking of Atiku.
Why did you say that?
So, yes. Remember, I was pointing out at the oligarchs, the role of the oligarchs in political parties.
Okay.
Atiku has the oligarchs with him. The oligarchs controls the delegates. because the delegates feed on the oligarchs.
Now it sounds it sounds in a different way. It doesn't sound like democracy anymore, and some people are feeling like we don't have the choice, we have the power.
Okay, in the words of Robert Micheal, higher law of oligarchy, who says organization says oligarchy. You intend organizing the state, you must pass through the oligarchic tendency. It's everywhere in every organization. There are hierarchies, top down. The same thing is applicable in the process of democracy. The party hierarchies are going to be the one who will decide your fate. Except it is not what I'm thinking, but then it is at that stage that they negotiate the national cake.
Okay, before we get into looking at analyzing each political party, let's talk about interest. You said the personal interest, but I have understand from analyzing and listening to political analysts that there are group interest, personal interest, and national interest when it comes to electioneering. Let's ask, in your opinion, which comes first, and which do you think that the politicians aim for? Which is their priority, the group, personal, or the national interest?
In the Nigerian setting or in the democratic setting, national interest comes last.
Okay, why did you say so?
So you shuttle between group interest and personal interest, because your personal interest might be the group's interest. The group's interest might be your personal interest. You're all the same when it comes to group level, and the group level is just a thing, which is still the oligarchs. Are you getting the dynamics?
I'm getting the dynamics.
So when you say national interest, it's at the level of elitist compromise that you then talk of national interest.
Okay.
When the elites don't come to a compromise on how the state should be governed, you don't get national interest.
Well, but that isn't that leaving the rest of the country in confusion, because if those that are coming out for personal interest or for group interest and they are not able to meet the national needs, isn't that enough reason to make people, you know, decide not to choose them? And first, how do we even know? How do we even know from political candidates, and even before they become candidates, when they are aspiring, how do we know how to select those that their interests match with the interest of the people?
The first point, of course, should be that we should ask ourselves, do we have civil society?
Okay. How does civil society come in here?
Okay. A society, a country where you have active civil society, the government sits on the edge. And a country where the civil society has been compromised, government rapes the state. And that is why you keep shouting, corruption here, corruption there. Because nobody's asking questions. We have a weak political culture. We don't have that level of conscientism. And because the political structure is weak, which they don't intend to improve, you can ask questions. Look at the whole civil society we have. They've all been compromised. They're either civil society up front for a politician or no. Including your NLC. When last did you see NLC buy?
Well, NLC has been out there trying to speak up, especially for ASU, and maybe when there is a fuel hike and things like that. I've not really heard NLC talk when it comes to
hearing like ever since I can ever since before I got to the university and after I left the university. So to the best of my knowledge, I've been hearing ASU strike for the past 20 years. So why do we still have ASU strike persistence?
So you believe that the civil society strength is going to help shape the government or shape the choosing of leadership?
The civil society asks questions of governance. They help conscientize the masses.
Okay.
And then the masses ask questions. So at that point, it's necessary to say that due to the material condition of man, Man has refused to ask necessary questions of government.
Okay.
Like Fela would say, I don't want die. Mama dey for house, papa dey for house. I get one child. So nobody is ready to ask those questions because we have the problem of stomach infrastructure satisfaction. Are you getting me?
I'm getting,
the kind of civil society we have, the kind of civil society we have in Nigeria is that which fends up on crumbs from the elites of society. So who pays the piper ends up dictating its tunes.
You know, before we move very far away from Labour Party and Peter Obi, you mentioned interest and how he moved from ABGA to PDP. So do you think it is his personal interest? Because when he comes out to talk and we see his campaigns, his strategies, it seems to be talking more of, I want to fix Nigeria. But do you think his movement from one political party to the other is more of personal interest?
Someone once had one shoes.
I got you.
And now somebody is having one wristwatch. Have you asked the questions? What does he intend to gain?
But someone else says it's his turn.
Someone else says it's his turn. Looking at the political agreements, he says it's his turn. By their own moral standard. Can you see the role of the elites in shaping the society? Okay. So the society is the representation of the elite class. The way you dress, the way you want to look, the way you want to do things, even the education you get, it is as approved by the elite class.
I like the fact that this conversation is touching the human angle, because right now, a lot of Nigerians cannot open their mouth and say they're in the elite class. They can't clearly say that they have that privilege. So are you saying that the percentage of our elites is not as much as the population? Nigeria is about over 200 million people. The elite class is not up to 10% of that. So are you saying that the percentage is shaping what the rest of the society is doing right now?
What we ought to have as a country is that we ought to have a middle class. But we don't even have a middle class. So it is two divided, the bourgeois class and the proletariat class. There is no middle class who questions the government. The middle class are the working class. If the middle class refuses to work, the state is held to a standstill. But the middle class has been compromised to then depend on the bourgeois class. Because of what Karl Marx referred to as the material condition. So you have woken up in the morning, you want to look for what to eat, which is the only hope you have. Then you have to what? Obey the dictates of the bourgeois class. Then you can't ask questions. Hunger then becomes a political tool, to condition the people. Vote buying.
I'm coming into that. But vote buying seemed to be something that the delegates were accused, especially of being okay. There was a time we heard that the primaries was dollarized, that the delegates were getting paid and things like that. So I want to still find out, you think that is a trend that should surprise people? Should people not be shocked, or they should just accept it as the norm? Because in another way, and even using what happened in Ekiti recently, the Ekiti elections, in comparison to what happened to Anambra, I could see that conversation online. Do you think that Nigerians are ever going to get to the point where they say, we will not sell our votes, we are not going to argue with you, if you are not good for us, we don't vote for you? Is that ever going to really happen?
That's at the level of measuring the political culture in the country.
Okay.
As it is now, this moment will pass. At some point, the standard clients, the so-called standard clients too, were once like us. So, vote buying, alleged vote buying, so to say, is like shifting the election dynamics from INEC rigging to direct accusation of numbers, because you're trying to acquire numbers by buying votes. So it is a game of master rigger through financial what do I call it now? By inducing financial muscle into the electoral process. And there's little INEC could do. INEC just want to count the numbers. How do you get the numbers? Is how much you can fund election as a political party.
Okay.
So vote buying has become the order of the day, until we then have another set of political consciousness. We can then start asking questions that, look, we don't want you. But I don't know if you've been hearing me saying that I don't want to vote. We already know that they would win.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming.
Actually, a political tool.
Yes, I'm coming to that mindset. I'm coming to that.
It's a means to an end.
Yes. Yes.
It's a means to an end where you even discourage people that are supposed to go to the polls, so that you're left with your followers. So people that are supposed to change the course of the day are home.
Okay.
Watching OTV and DSTV.
Okay, let's take a short break so that we don't have a very lengthy conversation. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to look at the other political parties and your predictions towards with the political system we operate now. We're going to look at your predictions in the forthcoming election. So please just stay on the line. We'll be back soon. Okay, welcome back, Joyi, Micheal. Let's move to the presidential primaries, the way it was run, the way it turns out, and your predictions towards the current political system we operate in. You mentioned something very, very critical, and that's the idea that people already know who we win, which is a statement we have been hearing in the past. Isn't this a narrative that should have ended by now? The two-party system pattern, people saying things like, no matter what you do. In fact, I've heard people say your PVC does not matter. It doesn't matter. If you like, get your PVC. If you like, don't get your PVC. Those kind of narratives, do they have any effect in the system and even in voting generally in Nigeria?
Is that not supposed to be personal disenfranchisement of yourself by not going to the polls? What are we left with? We're left with party faithfuls and party loyals to go to the polls, and then they decide the date for another 4 years.
But that's how it's been from the onset. We have seen people who clearly say, I just got my PVC so that if I need to go to the bank or something and they need a means of identity.
Then that brings us to the question of asking the third force. What is the role of the third force in conscientizing the people?
Do we really have a third force? Do we?
That is where I'm going.
Please feel free.
There is an alleged third force coming up. We've heard of Labour Party, we've heard of NNPP or thereabout or whatever. Now, what is the role of the third force in making people understand the level of their votes at the polls, the importance of using that PVC to speak? We have, don't forget, we have learned people and we have non-learned people in society. So how far have you gone in going to the nooks and crannies of the society to talk to the people who will end up saying that, okay, this year maybe they took some money to vote. Next year maybe they will say, oh, I felt it first time, I don't want to vote for them again. So no third force. They know what to do, but then they've not taken any step because they are all the same.
Okay. Why did you say so?
Yeah. If for example we could talk about Peter Obi now.
Okay.
He's winning on Twitter as it is.
Yeah.
But then I've not seen a representative in my area to even come to talk to Yamoria, Yashegun, the importance of going to the polls to vote out that governance.
He seemed to be getting the attention of the youth, which is right now the highest population that we have in Nigeria. Don't you think that's an
the question is the youth from what states? The youth from what region? Politics is a game of numbers.
Yes.
So if you're getting the attention of the youth, what numbers are they on social media? Who is biting? The youth in the southwest, could it be compared to the youth in the northeast? The youth that is listening to transistor radio and the youth that is on Twitter, are they the same thing? Who goes to the polls first? Who is easier to convince? And don't forget the role of religion in politics. It's actually an institution to get political votes.
Okay.
Through the leadership. So if the North, their eminent system in the North is top down, last order. The emir has said, the sultan has said, and then that's what runs through. What have you done to make them feel the importance of what they are supposed to do after what the sultan or the emir or the imam has said? Don't forget, religion, Muslim faithfuls, Christian faithfuls, is too divided. They are very obedient over there.
Okay.
Christian faithfuls, there is diverse interest. So the role of a Christian Association of Nigeria in giving out orders to Christians is, with regards to electioneering, is never to be compared with the Imam giving orders to Muslims. Do you understand me now?
I understand you, but I also want us to look at their running mates, the running mates of those that have come out to give us their impressions. And we have a very, very short time. If we can discuss this in about 5 minutes. Peter Obi has picked Okupe as his vice presidential candidate. Tinubu has picked Masari as his Kabiru Masari as his vice presidential candidate. Atiku has picked Ifeanyi Okowa. With these arrangements, who do you think is addressing the issue of zoning, religion, and almost all the institutions that that boosts people's morale and that can encourage people to actually come out and vote?
Okay, first I need to correct an impression.
Okay.
Peter Obi has a vice as a placeholder.
Okay.
Likewise, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has the vice as placeholder, which implies that they are still likely going to withdraw those candidates and pick another candidate.
Okay.
But in the real sense, the permutation for power, if it has to do with numbers, religion is minimal.
Okay.
So if Ebola Ahmed Tinubu ends up doing a Muslim ticket, he gets his numbers. A Peter Obi will likely need a northern Muslim to get his numbers. Forget the sentiment about religion. Forget the fact that it has to be a Christian Muslim. We've had Christian leadership in Nigeria before, and nobody failed. We've had a Christian Muslim before, and the Christian did not do anything. You see, there's nothing called vice in organization. It's only when the head is not there that's when you're relevant. Nobody hears the vice. Even in the United States of America, how many times have you heard of Kamala Harris? They don't come into the picture. They're just there should in case unforeseen circumstances.
Are you saying they should not channel their energy into who their vice president is? They should not channel so much energy into the choices they make at that stage.
You need a vice president that is going to give you numbers. A Tinubu would likely pick a Muslim northerner. Bornu, Yobe, also Katsina. Those are 1 million votes. Kano, 1 million votes. Muslim states. Technically, you have 6 million votes. And you now end up to go and pick a Christian from Plateau, where you get 500,000 votes. Don't you think the opposition, like an article, will play the religion card? And pick a Muslim northerner. I'm looking at the top-down order that comes within the Muslim hierarchies. Don't you think they would divert their votes for somebody that's faithful to them as a Muslim?
Wow.
So will you advise me to go pick a Christian northerner who are in the minority in the north? Forget the permutation. A Bola Tinubu will win Southwest. Am I correct? If I'm correct. Even if he picks a Christian northerner or a Muslim northerner, he's likely not going to win Southeast. And the votes in South-South, he will get numbers and might not win the whole South-South. So what do you think he should do? A Muslim northerner for his numbers to be complete. Remember, you need a two-third, 25% of two-third, which is 24 states. You have 6 in Southwest, you have 19 states in the North.
Okay.
Get the majority of the votes in the North, plus the Southwest, numbers from the South, South, and Southeast.
Okay, in 1 minute, tell us what is the hope for the Labour Party, what you predict for the Labour Party, because our time is almost fast spent.
The reality about Labour Party is that I don't see them doing a 1 million vote from this coming election, in reality speaking.
Why did you
they've not done their grassroots. They've not done their grassroots work. Those that are pricing on Twitter, go and look at their followers. How many are there? How many people is liking those comments? Do we have 500,000?
But 2023 is still next year. Don't you think this is enough time to be able to do their groundwork and get the grassroots?
What we have between now and 2023, what we have is kinds of propaganda, which is going to determine followership and sympathies. How many do they have in card?
Okay.
How many can they play? Can he withstand what they would dish out to him?
Okay, let's
election. You went to Egypt to understudy power.
Okay, so let's do this.
Because somebody's buying a baby clothes when you got even married.
You know, in their own minds, it's different from how you're putting it. But because of our time, I'd like you to summarize with how you think Nigerians should choose their leaders, and then we'll probably come up next time and continue this conversation. So how do you think
not until we're ready to understand the peculiarity of the political system as Nigerians, it is still very hard for us to choose the kind of leadership we want. Because leadership, in definition, varies across interests of the people. So what is good to you might be bad to me. So not until we then come to a general agreement on what our problems are and how we intend to solve them before we then start thinking of good leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joey Michael, for joining me. I really do enjoy having this conversation with you. And I hope that we're able to sit down when there is an update and talk again about politics in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do have a great day.